Hello, gamers. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Foundry VTT 101 course. In this video, we're going to be creating our second scene in Foundry VTT, the battle map. A battle map is pretty much the opposite of what we created in our last video, the Theater of the Mind. Battle maps have grids, and they have miniatures or tokens. There are structures, oftentimes there's weather, and most importantly, they have combat. We're going to save the actual combat for the next video, that's episode 5. So if you're looking to see how you can kill things and take their stuff in Foundry VTT, go ahead and jump to that one. Otherwise, stay on this video and see how we create and build our battle map. The first thing I'll do is go ahead and navigate over to the right-hand side of the screen and click the Scenes button. Then I'll create a new scene. And this particular scene I will call the Village of Glenfinnan. And I will go ahead and create it. Just like I did in my last video, my very first step after creating a scene is to exit the dialog box and then make the new scene active. In our previous video, we added a background image by right-clicking and selecting Configure. And we could do that same thing here for our battle map scene. Matter of fact, 99% of the time, that's all you'll need to do to get your background images into Foundry. However, I'm going to deviate from that practice to show you a different way to import images into Foundry, just in case you're using a third-party map creation program that requires you to import both the image and its data. Now, there are lots of maps you can just download from the web. In fact, you can add modules in Foundry VTT that have lots of really great maps, which you can just drop into your scene like we did in the last video for free. But because I like to make things difficult, I usually create my own maps from scratch. In my case, I've created a map using a program called Dungeon Alchemist. And one reason I've done this is because I get walls and doors and shadows and lighting for free when I use that program. If you're new to virtual tabletops and map making, you may not know what I'm talking about, but in this video, we'll learn all about those things, so hang tight. Dungeon Alchemist requires that I upload a single file before placing my image into Foundry like we did in the last video. So I'll right-click on my village scene and select Import Data instead of Configure. Then a new dialog pops up, and I'll click Choose File. And then I will navigate to where my map data is located on my computer. What I'm looking for is this village of Glenfinnan.json file. Select it and click Import. Now, this may be a little difficult to see as you're watching this video, but if I zoom out a bit, you'll notice a couple of doors and some foggy white shadows in various places. So that's what importing the file did for me. It does actually even more, and we'll see that in just a bit. Now that that's done, I'll go back to my village scene and do the same thing we did in our previous video with our Mystic Wagon. Right-click, select Configure, and then I'm going to look for the background image. Same thing as before, browse files. Once again, as we did the last time, I'm going to increase the size of the images so I can see them. And then I scroll down to the image that I made in my external program and click on it and click Select File. And I can see it here. And I'm going to click Save Changes. You can see that the image of my little village is now on my scene, just like our Mystic Wagon image was on the scene. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and right-click and select Configure. And then I'm going to change that background color to be black once again. Just a reminder, the black background is not necessary for any scene. It just makes me happy. In this village, we've got a small inn, and we've got a small merchant wagon, and we've got our mystic wagon over here on the right that we made our Theater of the Mind scene for in an earlier video. But I think there's more we can do with this village to add some ambiance. Let's say it's early morning and we've got some fog drifting through our little village. To set that up, I'm going to return to our scene configuration menu. And the first thing I will do is go to our lighting tab. And like we did in our past video, I'm going to change that darkness level to a nice 0.2. Then I'll select the Ambiance tab at the top right, and I'll scroll down to the very bottom of this tab where it has weather effects. You can see here when I click on the menu that there are 6 options to choose from. These are just the default 6 that's included with Foundry VTT. It should be noted that there are dozens and dozens of weather effects that you can add on as part of free modules. I'll go ahead and select fog and save changes. Now my scene reloads, and you can see that my village now has a really nice animated fog effect, which is great. But there is one problem. I now have fog inside my tavern, and I do not want fog inside my tavern. So I'm going to use what is called a region control here in Foundry. It's basically a way to draw a simple shape, like a circle or a square or a polygon, and say inside this shape, I want this thing to happen. Over here on the left-hand menu, it looks sort of like a checkerboard. I'm going to go ahead and click that region control button. And when I do that, you can see that the adjacent column of buttons changes and a pop-up dialog also appears. I'll go ahead and select the square shape here because my tavern is basically a rectangle. And then just like the animated helper says, I will left click and drag over my tavern like so, and release. Another dialog pops up, and it's asking me what I want to do with this region that I've just drawn. Like every other dialog in Foundry, this one has multiple widgets and multiple tabs. On the right-hand side, in the Behaviors tab, I'll click and click the plus button. Currently, there are no behaviors associated with this blue rectangle, so I will create a new one. And then it offers me a drop down with some pre-populated actions of what I can do. There are 11 of these in all. I don't want to go through all of them in detail, but I did want to highlight a few things you may want to experiment with in your own game. Foundry has the ability to automatically calculate token movement and notify you when your character has moved too far. If you wanted to make something difficult terrain and take up more than one move per square, you could go ahead and select the difficult terrain option. Remember our pause button on the space bar? I mentioned in an earlier video, I use it to keep my players from wandering off before I'd had a chance to introduce the big bad evil guy or to finish describing a scene. You could use the pause game option to automatically pause the game when your players step on a certain square on the map. We won't be discussing teleportation in these videos because it's a pretty advanced topic with multiple ways to set it up, but if you wanted to have characters teleport when they step on a square or when they reach a certain part of the map, you could use this option. You could even have them teleport to a completely different scene like our Mystic Wagon so that you would not have to manually switch either in the breadcrumb menu or in the right-hand scene menu. But to handle this fog in our tavern, I'm going to go ahead and select Suppress Weather. Then I'll click the Create Region Behavior, and then I will go ahead and update region behavior. And finally, I'm back at the original dialog, which is update region. Our dialog is now closed, but all we can really see is that purple rectangle. So to go back and see what our players might look at, I'm going to go ahead and click on the token controls button on the upper left-hand corner. Now we can see that our purple region control has completely removed the fog from our tavern, and it's completely safe to drink both mead and ale once again. We can see that in both the breadcrumb at the top of the screen and in the scene list on the right, that this battle map is called Village of Glenfinnan. But let's suppose that we want to give our players a more direct visual cue on the map. There are a number of drawing tools here on the left. You can do everything you would expect with a drawing tool, like circles and squares and polygons and freehand scribbling. I'm going to go ahead and select the Draw Text button, and after that is selected, I will go ahead and scroll to the top of the map and left drag a rectangle. Then I'm going to go ahead and double left click on that rectangle to open up a dialog. I know you're tired of hearing me say this by now, but like all other Foundry dialogues, this one is chock full of widgets that we can completely ignore because we don't be using 99% of them. Up here at the top, I've got 4 different tabs. I will move over to the text tab, and I will make a text label called Village of Glenfinnan. After that, I'll go ahead and update the drawing, and we can see that the words Village of Glenfinnan have now been written on the map. Once this drawing is on the scene, I can go ahead and left drag it anywhere I'd like. Now, there's nothing wrong with what I have here for this text label, but like everything else, I'm not really satisfied until things are just right in my scene. So I'll go ahead and double click and make some more adjustments. On the text tab at the top right, I'm going to go ahead and switch fonts or font family over to Modesto Condensed. Unfortunately, there's no font preview here. It's a little bit weird since Foundry has font preview on some of its other dialogues, but for now, we'll just select this one. When I update my drawing, you can see it's much more of a fantasy-oriented typeface, but it's really, really small. I'm actually having to zoom in to see it. So, double-click again, and this time, I'll slide the font size over until I get to a 92. Update the drawing, much better. And let's see, I want to change the color. So double click again, same tab, same dialog. In this case, I don't exactly know the hex color of, I want to have it kind of match some of this map border here, this kind of tan faded map border. So I'll go ahead and click on the color picker and choose my color dropper. And now it will kind of give me a preview of what area I'm highlighting. I'll just pick one of these upper areas on the map, click it. It's kind of a brown tan. And I'll go ahead and update the drawing to that. There we go. That looks nice. And finally, let's open this up again and go over to the Lines tab. You can see here I have this kind of border around it. Don't really want that. I just need the text label. So I will go ahead and make that line width 0, effectively making it invisible. Update my drawing. Go back to my player view at token controls, and we can see I have a nice label at the top of this map to let players know which village they are in. Our tavern is pretty quiet right now. Let's see if we can add some music. There are two ways to add audio in Foundry VTT. The first way is to add it to the scene, like we did with our Mystic Wagon in the previous video, but I want something a little different for our tavern. I only want to hear the music when the token or a token is positioned inside. To get that directional kind of audio, I'm going to the ambient sound controls on the left, and then I will click it and left drag that audio inside the tavern. And this is very similar to what we had for our lighting. As I drag and expand and contract, we can see that the radius of that circle is increasing and decreasing. I'll go ahead and drag it so that it completely fills up the tavern. When I release, another dialog pops up. Unlike a lot of other Foundry VTT dialogues, this one actually only has a single tab. I will go ahead and click on the Browse Files button to see if I can grab some tavern music. Here we have 1 hour of tavern music. Select that, select the file. We can see it's been updated here. And then I'm going to scroll down a bit and set that maximum volume to a 0.2. You can really blast your players' ears off with music volume, so I'm going to be conservative and drag that slider to the left. It can also be a little distracting if you're trying to talk and the music is blasting. The last thing I'm going to do is uncheck the volume easing box, like so. Volume easing is basically the Doppler effect, whereby something gets louder the closer your character token is to it, and it gets quieter the further away your character or token is from it. In this case, our tavern is really small, so we don't need a Doppler effect here. I'll click Create Ambient Sound, and this works very much like the lighting we saw in the Mystic Wagon scene from the previous video. You can right-click to turn it off, and right-click to turn it on again. It's a toggle. I'd really like to have a signpost out front of this tavern so that my players know what's inside before stepping in. To do that, I'll click the Journal Notes button on the left. It looks like a little banner. And then in the second column, I'll click Create Map Note, which looks like a little book. I left click on the map, and it asks me what I would like to name my map note. I'm going to go ahead and use my default tavern name that I use for every single campaign. There we go. And then I'll click Create Note. I don't know if you can see it because it's a little smaller, but there's a tiny book to the left of the tavern doors, and we have a new dialogue that's popped up. Once again, this is one of the simpler dialogues in that it only has a single tab. Now, I've got to do something about the size of that teeny little icon, so what I'll do is I will scroll down and basically double the size to 80. And instead of an image of a book, which doesn't really look like a sign, I will go ahead and on the entry icon right here, there's a drop down with many, many different types of map notes. I will go ahead and select hanging sign in that drop down menu. Go ahead and click create map note. And this is looking much better. The sign is nice and large, and it's a sign instead of a book. And when hovered, I can see that I have misspelled horseshoe, which I'll go back and fix in just a moment. And also, I can see the name of the inn itself. Something to note here, if you want to get back into the map note dialog, you might be tempted to left click or double left click or right click, but none of these methods will work. The only way to re-edit a map note is to double right click on the note. This behavior is a little bit different than the other tools we've been working with, so I just thought I'd point it out. I will go through here and correct my spelling, like so. and update the map note. All right, correct spelling looks good. Like we did in a previous video with copying and pasting our lights, I'm going to copy and paste this sign a couple of times so that my players can see what the other two wagons are for. So I will go ahead and left click. Go ahead and select the Select Notes widget at the upper left. Left click so that it's highlighted. Copy and paste. I'll go ahead and drag one of these off by our merchant wagon. Same thing, select copy, paste, and drag this over by our mystic wagon. Double right clicking, I'll open this up. I like the hanging sign, so I will keep that. I like the size of that. I'm going to go ahead and change this text label to Manny's Marvelous. I have no idea how that's spelled, either marvelous or not. Merchandise. Okay, so update that map node, and now when I hover, I see Manny's Marvelous Merchandise. And over here to the right, I'll go ahead and double right click that. And I will make this very generic, and I will just say that this is a fortune teller. Okay. Looks good. So now I have my 3 different hanging signposts that are all map notes. Something to note here about map notes themselves, you can see in the second column or the rightmost column of my map layer tools, there is a push pin that says toggle notes display. You want to make sure that both you as the GM and your players have this enabled so that it has a solid background. You do not want the clear background. If one of your players has the clear background, they will not see any of these map notes. Everything will be invisible, so you want it to be solid and toggled. Now, our hanging signs are a great map aid, but I'm also going to create a journal for this entire scene. And then I'm going to put information related to some of these hanging signs in the journal. Over on the right, we have our journal button. Like our other tools, we have the ability to create a new journal or create a folder to hold one of our many journals. Since this is just one scene, let's create a new entry. I'll call this journal the same as my map so I can keep track. This will be the village of Glenfinnan. Create that journal entry. And what we're presented with here is sort of a blank page. My title's at the top, but there's really nothing else here. At this point, you can think of this journal as a book without pages. We're strictly looking at a nice leather-bound cover with the title description on the side, but there's nothing inside. To add pages to this book, we'll click the Add Page button in the lower left-hand corner. It'll ask us what kind of page we want to add, with the default being text. We can also name that page whatever we'd like. I'll go ahead and name this page Entering the Village, and I'll click Create Page. Our editor pops up, and now we have a 0 chapter to the left in the journal navigation page. I'm going to enter a description to narrate for my players. I'll paste this in. Something to note here, when I choose text as a page type, that wasn't really accurate. Although we can have text on this page, it really isn't the only thing that we can put here. At the top of this journal page, you can see that I have a whole bunch of WYSIWYG tools in this rich text editor. There's all the usual stuff that you would expect, like paragraph and fonts and bullets. There's numbering. But we've also got tables that we can create here, which I find is pretty handy for things like deities and religions if you're making a reference page for your players. There's also links you can add to both internal and external web pages. There's even HTML and CSS markup you can do here if you'd like to do your text in purple or red. I'll go ahead and do a quick edit here. Style equals, we'll see if I can remember my HTML. Color red. I think that's it. We click back here, and yes, we can go ahead and color code some of our text entries if that's what we would like. I do not, so I'll go ahead and remove it, but it is an option if you so choose, and if you happen to be handy with HTML and or CSS. Finally, you can add images directly to the page. So the text journal, even though it says type is text, really has a decent number of features built in. I'll go ahead and save the changes and close this. And then I'm going to create an additional page. This time, let's take a look at some of the different types that we can choose from besides text. Image is a really great one if all you need to do is show a picture. I use the PDF page in my campaigns quite a bit to load entire rule books into Foundry where my players can access exact copies of the player's guide or various supplements. It works exactly like a normal PDF reader where you can search and copy and paste. It's got page numbers. It's pretty full featured. Full disclosure, I have not tried all of these journal types, so feel free to experiment and see if you can use them in your own games, and let me know if they worked out. Okay, back to creating journals for our battle map. I'm going to go ahead and create a page for our tavern. I'll go ahead and give it a title. I actually spelled it correctly, so that's good. I go ahead and create another page, and I will paste some text in here that I have on a text editor off here on the side. Now that this text has been pasted in here, I'm going to use a feature in the paragraph block submenu. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this piece of text, and I'm going to go mark it as secret. In the next video, when I bring in a player, we'll see that this chunk of text is not visible to anyone but the GM. But I want to have the option of showing players if maybe they make a observation check or they roll well. I'm going to save this as is, but we're not quite done with our GM notes yet. In a previous video, we were talking about compendiums and how different game systems can include a small, medium, or large quantity of support materials. I'm going to click on my compendium packs over here on the right, and I'm going to select D&D Modern Content, and then I'm going to go down to the Rules section. When I click on Rules, a journal opens up. It's basically a giant table of contents for everything that Wizards of the Coast has digitized as part of their free SRD, their System Resource Document. On the right side of this journal, we have Gameplay Toolbox, and then underneath it, we have Fear and Mental Stress. If I go ahead and click that link, a new journal page opens up that looks nearly identical to the one we created with our village, except it has a lot more stuff in it. When I click on mental stress effects here in the table of contents, it takes me to a section of the rules for the closest thing I could actually find to drunk for the D&D 5e system, but I really don't want to have to navigate through compendiums to find this stuff if it should come into play during the game. So I'm going to go back to my village journal and edit those tavern notes. I click on the quill feather in the top right, and my editor opens up again. I'm going to hit a couple of carriage returns here, and I'll go ahead and put a horizontal rule in so I have a visual indicator of one section versus another in my journal. And then I'm going to add some new text. I'm going to say treat lug, we'll pull in lug in just a minute, as drunk, which has, and then I'll kind of leave a space for what I'm going to do next. Now, my screen is pretty crowded here, and what I'd like to do is drag and drop from one journal to another, but these take up a whole bunch of space. So what I might do is collapse the sidebar on this journal and kind of drag it over and see if I can position both of these. I think I've got it where I need it. And then what I will do is I'm going to grab this mental stress effects link from the D&D journal, and I'm going to drag and drop it right there. Let me get my cursor on this. Actually, the window I'm editing here is underneath the other one, so let me scooch that over. Okay. And now, okay, much better. So now I'm going to take this mental stress effects and drag it right here and drop it. Now, it looks a little odd right now, but when I go ahead and save this and close it and view it, we can see that now I have a hyperlink that goes directly to my D&D journal. So let me illustrate how this works. I'm going to go ahead and close all the D&D journals, clear up some room on the window, give me my table of contents back, and then I will go ahead and click on this link, and it automatically jumps and opens up the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition SRD link within Foundry VTT. This direct linking can be done with lots of different items in the game, not just journals. It can be done with actors, with items. Pretty much anything can be hot linked by dragging and dropping. And you might be wondering at this point, okay, I see what you did there, but why go to all this effort for these journals and for these map notes? Back here on my scenes, I'll go over and open the configuration for the village of Glenfinnan. And then I will go ahead and select the Ambiance tab in the upper right. And then I will go to Journal Entry and select this new journal. And then I will select specifically out of the 2 pages I have made, I will select Entering the Village and then save my changes. And then I will go ahead and close this journal. Now I'll go over to Journal Notes on the left. I will double right click for my horseshoe road in. I will select that same journal entry, but a different page this time, and update my map note. Finally, I will click on Token Controls in the upper left-hand corner, and let's see what we have. As the GM, when this battle map loads for my players in Foundry, I can right-click on the breadcrumb, and now I have an entry for scene notes. If I click on that entry, it will automatically jump to my journal, and everything I need to describe to them is already in one place, ready to go. I'll close this journal, and then double left click on the sign outside of the tavern as if I were a player, and I automatically jump to this journal. Now, we see everything here because we're the GM, but when I bring my player in during the next video, you'll see that this purple secret section is hidden for them. While I'm at it here, I will go ahead and edit this page and make sure the drunk description is also hidden so they do not see that either unless I want them to. Save again, and now I've got both of those. I can go ahead and reveal it to players, and I can click again. It's a toggle. I can hide it from players as well. Hopefully, you can see the power of journals for larger, more complex scenes where each shop or landmark has a unique description. Or when you have 10 different scenes and each one needs its own flavor text and you don't want to have to fumble through pencil and paper notes in addition to running both your adventure and Foundry. Okay, we are finally at the point where we add tokens to the scene. I'm going to go ahead and ping pong back and forth between my slides and Foundry to try to better illustrate how tokens and items work because some of it is not very intuitive. Just like in our previous videos, I'm going to be using the analogy of a bookshelf and a gaming table to describe what's going on in Foundry. Over here in the Actors section, I have a folder called Player Hand. You can ignore that for now as it's part of the cards that we'll be dealing with in a later video. What I want to illustrate here is that you have the ability in every game system you download on Foundry to manually create actors. You can click the Create Actor button, and whatever system you have loaded will ask you what kind of actor you would like to create. It just so happens that the D&D 5e system has these 5 types. Other systems may have 1 type or 10 types. It just depends on who coded it. For the purposes of this sample, I'll go ahead and create a test player character and click Create Actor. A D&D character sheet pops up, and I'm free to fill in any of this stuff as I see fit. Depending on the complexity of the game system and how it was coded, Foundry may even walk you through character creation and leveling. I believe that D&D 5e has that ability here, but I will not be building my character here. I'll be relying on pre-built characters. But for now, to get an idea of how Foundry works, we can drag and drop any item from our compendium into our character sheet. So if I go back to my compendium packs and look at D&D modern content, and I open equipment, and I can find some armor. Here we go. I can take this shield and drag and drop it onto the character sheet, and that item will be there. So if D&D 5e has a bunch of tabs over here to the right. So if I click on inventory, you can see I have nothing there now. I drag the shield, I drop it, and now I have a shield on that character sheet. And I could literally drag anything over from compendiums and drop them into my character sheet, and that stuff would appear. Technically, we don't even have to use the stuff in the compendium. Any game system allows you to make items that you can drag and drop into a character sheet. Clicking on items here and create item, you see that the D&D 5e system allows us to pretty much make anything from scratch. I'll go ahead and create something ridiculous like the Taco Bell Spork. So let me get that name set up and select it as a weapon. I can create that item. This is now local. You can think of this as being on the gaming table itself as opposed to on the bookshelf. I've got this Taco Bell spork. I can assign whatever attributes I would like to it. And I will close this. And now I can take my Taco Bell spork and drag it to my character sheet. And lo and behold, I have a mighty, mighty Taco Bell spork. Again, you can do this for any game system in Foundry VTT, not just D&D 5e. Finally, I will go close this and go back to the Actors tab, and then I will drag and drop this test character onto the map. You can see here that they're now present on our screen, but what's really happening here? To explain this, we'll need to refer to our real-life gaming table. So right now, we've got a character sitting in the actors area named Test. The analogy here is that our test is a sheet of paper sitting on the gaming table and not on the bookshelf. In the items area, we've got our Taco Bell spork. It's a weapon that we penciled onto a piece of paper, and that piece of paper is also on the gaming table, but it does not exist on the bookshelf. If we open our character sheet, we can see that in the inventory, we've also got a piece of equipment called shield. Even though that shield is also written on our character sheet on the gaming table, it's also listed on a specific page of the D&D Player's Guide sitting on our bookshelf. Finally, we've got a token on the scene in Foundry, which is like having a plastic or old school pewter token sitting on the map in the middle of the gaming table. But that token does not exist anywhere on the bookshelf. If I navigate to the test in the actors area and I right click and I delete, you can see that Foundry warns me that there's no way to recover if I move forward. I select yes, and I've now deleted this actor from the game. This is akin to pretty much ripping up my paper character sheet on the gaming table and throwing it in the trash. Now my token is still on the map, but if I double left clicked on it, it tells me that it is orphaned. This token references an actor which no longer exists. In essence, I just ripped up the character sheet on the table and I'm trying to figure out what the stats of this token are. Well, there are none because I ripped up the character sheet. So I can go ahead and delete the token or the actor by left clicking and clicking delete, and now it is gone from the scene. If I go back to items, my Taco Bell spork is still present. Why? Because that Taco Bell spork was actually separate from my paper character sheet. I basically made up something in my head and then wrote it down on paper. If I want to give someone else a Taco Bell spork, then it's still fresh in my memory and I can drag and drop it to someone else's character that I would make in Foundry. Let's try this same setup again, but this time, let's delete the spork before the actor. I'll go ahead and create another actor. And I will go ahead and redrag the shield onto the character sheet. And I will redrag the spork over there as well. But this time, I'll go right click and delete the spork first. Again, there's a warning telling me if you delete this, it won't be here anymore. Ignore that and click delete. Now, that spork is still written on the paper character sheet on the gaming table in our real life analogy, but I can no longer drag and drop it to any other character sheets in the game. It's local right now to just this one character sheet. A real world analogy to this might be that 10 sessions ago, the GM gave you a Taco Bell spork, and you wrote it down in your character sheet. But the GM can't remember giving it to you, and you have no idea what to do with your spork because there's no record of it anywhere in any gaming book. And now, if I go ahead and delete this actor in Foundry, my Taco Bell spork is lost forever. However, if we go back to the compendium, we can see that in equipment, our trusty shield is still there. I'll close this, go back to equipment, and our shield is still there. Just like having the player's guide on a bookshelf, that shield is permanently written into the book unless you remove it by force. In fact, Foundry VTT tries to protect you from defacing items on your real life bookshelf by locking the compendiums by default. That's what all these padlocks are. Now, you might be asking, well, what if I want to forever save my beloved Taco Bell spork? You do have the ability to create your own compendiums, and save all of your own custom items and actors and journals and music and scenes to many different compendiums as you would like. And you can lock those compendiums and keep them safe, filled with sporks for many years to come. That's what the Create Compendium button is here at the top of the screen. However, that's beyond the scope of what I want to show right now. Just realize that it is possible. Close this compendium, and instead of making a character from scratch, let's grab some pre-mades from the compendium. I'm going to show you multiple ways to do the same thing here because Foundry VTT offers you a lot of choices on how you'd like to choose to take objects from your bookshelf to your gaming table. Instead of making a character from scratch, let's grab some pre-mades from the compendium. I'm going to show you multiple ways to do the same thing here because Foundry VTT offers you a lot of choices on how you choose to take objects from your bookshelf and set them on your gaming table. The first way is to import. So I'll click on Actors and I'll search for Commoner. We can see here that this is a completed character sheet, so there's nothing that I need to do. Our bartender is going to be a commoner, so I will use this pre-made for them. I'll go ahead and right-click and import entry. Once again, it shows me the character sheet. Let's look in the actors area. We can see that the commoner has now been copied. In essence, what's happened is I've made a photocopy or took a screenshot of a page in the player's guide on the bookshelf and put that character sheet on the gaming table. The original, just like our shield, was not modified in the compendium. Regardless of what we do to this commoner from here on out, our original commoner in the compendium will be safe and sound. I'll edit the character sheet by clicking on the monkey wrench in the upper left-hand corner, and I'll rename this Benny the Bartender. Go ahead and close, and we notice here that our character sheet in our actors area, basically the gaming table, has been renamed. But the actor in our compendium on the bookshelf, the commoner, has not. Another way you can get an actor from a compendium and put them directly into your Foundry game is by dropping them directly onto the scene. This time I'll go ahead and search for Bandit. And instead of importing, I'll just drag and drop onto the map directly. This will be our bar patron named Lug, who we will get in a fight with next session, next video. Right there. Two things happened when I did this. First, the bandit appeared in the list of actors on the right, which is like having a character sheet placed on the gaming table. In addition to that, there's now a bandit token placed on the map in my tavern. It's as if I super fast made a 3D printed copy of a token that was sitting on my bookshelf and then placed it onto the gaming table. I'm going to double left click on the bandit that's in actors area on the right. I'll edit this one and I will call it Lug for our drunk patron. Once again, when I close this and it saves, we now see that on the right-hand side, Lug has joined Benny, our bartender. If I double left click on the token on our map, you can see that its name has also been changed to Lug. And you may also hear some music in the background because remember from earlier we put down some sweet, sweet tavern music inside those tavern walls. I'm going to take a minute here and grab a few more actors from the compendium so that I can fill out our cast of characters for this tutorial. I want both types of mages. So I will import those. And one of those is going to be our merchant named Manny. And I'll make the other our fortune teller, who we'll set up in just a bit. And her name is going to be Madam Fortune. All right. I'll go ahead and look for a shadow. This giant beastie will be very good at protecting Manny's cart of goods from thievery. And finally, I'm going to grab a scout. And this will be our player character who will join us in the next video. I'll go ahead and call him Quill. And I'll close our actor compendium. And I'll go ahead and place these actors on the scene. So Benny the bartender belongs in the tavern. Lug is already in the tavern. Madam Fortune will be on our other theater of the mind scene. Mandy the merchant will take up his position here, in front of his wagon. Quill will just be coming into town over here. And our shadow will be protecting the wagon over here. Now, if I left-click on Quill, it seems like he can see right through the walls of the tavern. And while this is great for me as a GM, I really don't want this ability for my players. So I need to change a single setting for all tokens that should have restricted vision. You can access token settings by right-clicking a token. These buttons you see all represent settings that you could otherwise get to by double-clicking the token and opening the character sheet and doing some manipulation there, but it's not always convenient to do that, so they're offered here as a shortcut. I'll focus more on these in our combat video, which is next, but for now, I'll click the Open Configuration button that kind of looks like a gear. In this particular dialog, we have 5 different tabs across the top. The Vision tab in the center has the settings that I need. The very top checkbox is Vision Enabled. When you click on it, you can instantly see the difference on the scene behind it. Off, on. My rule of thumb for when a token needs to be checked, or for when this setting needs to be checked, is that if a token on the scene is ever going to possibly engage in combat, I check this box. I'll click the Update Token button at the bottom of this dialog. Looking at our other tokens on the scene, I don't think that Manny the Merchant is going to throw down anytime soon. So when I click his token, he sees everything, which again is just fine. Down at the tavern, I specifically want to get in a fight with Lug, so I'm making sure that he has vision. Right-click, Open Configuration, Vision, and Vision Enabled, and Update Token. Again, we can hear tavern music. Our bartender, don't really think he's going to fight anyone, but just in case there gets to be a rumble and he needs to break it up, I'll right-click, set his vision as well, and update his token. And finally, our shadow is the muscle for Manny. He will definitely be getting in a fight if somebody tries to pull a fast one, so I will right-click and make sure that his vision has enabled also. Now, we need to take a look at this sales situation over here with Manny the Merchant. Let's be honest, nobody is going to want to buy a single thing from poor Manny the Merchant if there's a giant black shadow just looming over them. So I'm going to right-click that token again. The menu will pop up, and I'm going to click the button on the top right, which is the toggle visibility. In our case, we definitely want the shadow to be invisible to our players. It's really difficult to see with all this fog, so let me temporarily move this fella to the tavern so you can see the difference between hidden and shown. Here's hidden, here's shown. I'm going to move our shadow back to his location over by the wagon, and I'm going to direct your attention over here to the left-hand side of the screen. We have this little ghosty for unconstrained movement. Remember earlier we were talking about the push pin on our map tokens, how the background was purple/blue and you knew when it was enabled. The reason I was able to go ahead and move our invisible shadow through the tavern walls is because this is enabled. If I deselect this and attempt to drag our shadow in again, you can see that it gets to a certain point with a solid line, and then it goes to a dashed line. What happens if I release this is it will go as far as the wall, but it will not go any further. The reason that I bring this up is because one of the most common questions on social media is how come I cannot drag my tokens through walls? And the reason they cannot is because unconstrained movement is disabled. It needs to be enabled with the blue background in order to once again move through walls. Now, you may be wondering where that wall came from because we didn't actively make one on our battle map. Remember all the way back to the beginning of this video when I had to load that extra file before adding the image to my village? With right-click, import data. Well, that file is what gave us our walls for free. To see the walls, we'll click on the Walls Control button on the left. Now, as we take a look at our tavern, we can see that there are 3 types of walls already in place. The tan walls are solid, and they do not let light or vision or sound or tokens pass, which is why our Shadow Beastie got stuck when we deselected that button. The purple walls are doors, which can be opened or closed, and they can even be locked. The blue walls are windows, which allow light and vision, but not sound or tokens. To illustrate this fully, I'll switch back to token controls on the left, and I'll move Quill around the tavern. I can move several different ways. One of those ways is by left dragging, as we've seen. Depending on the system, Foundry may assist players with determining how far they can move on the battle map in one turn. If I go ahead and open up Quill's sheet, I can see that his movement speed with the little feet here is 30. And as I click and drag, Foundry is automatically calculating his distance with each square as being 5 feet. I'm going to zoom out just a tad here, move him up to the corner. Now, the system is also calculating different rates of movement. If I keep dragging past the green, you can see it turns yellow, and that takes me all to 60 feet. That's double movement in terms of the 5e game system. Extreme movement is going to be in red. It is anything beyond those two. Some systems will have this like D&D 5e, others will not. It just depends on who coded it. I can also move Quill's token by using the up, down, left, right arrow keys on the keyboard. Note that Foundry does not count Quill's move distance when I move using the arrow keys. Zoom into our tavern. And there's a few things to notice here. There are 3 types of vision. The first is a straight line of sight vision, whereby Quill can see anywhere there is not a solid wall. This would be the woods around him, and he can also see through some of the windows in the tavern. The second type of vision is where Quill cannot see anything currently, but he remembers where that what he saw last. As an example, he can't currently see the mystic wagon on the right if I move him down here. It's obstructed by his vision, but he remembers that the mystic wagon was here last. Unless that wagon has somehow moved away, he does have a memory of what he was able to see before being obstructed by the corner of the building. This type of vision is shown in light gray. Down and to the right of the tavern is solid black vision. That means that Quill cannot see what's there currently, and he has never seen what's there before. This type of three-tiered vision is what's known as fog of war, and you get it for free in Foundry by clicking on the checkbox we saw in the token settings. Now, I've almost got this battle map scene where I want it. I'm just about done. But I'm a little bothered that the tavern blocks Quill's view, but none of the other two wagons block his view. After all, maybe Manny's wagon is kind of small, but this fortune teller wagon is pretty large. It's almost the same size of the tavern, so I don't think he should be able to see through it. I'm going to manually add walls to each wagon so that Quill cannot see through them. To do this, I'll go ahead and select the wall controls on the left that we saw earlier. But this time, instead of just looking where the walls already are, I'll draw some new ones. There are lots of different options for drawing walls here, anything from drawing windows to doors to hidden doors. But the wall that I want to select is a terrain wall, symbolized by this triangle kind of mountain looking thing right here. As you can see by the previews, it allows me to see the object that is blocking me, but it does not allow me to see beyond that object. So I will go ahead and left click to enable that tool, zoom in a little bit on my two wagons. I'll go ahead and left click to start drawing. You can see it gives me kind of this ray or line with two endpoints on it. And then I could do single walls all the way around this wagon, but that would be a little painful because then I'd have to line each wall up. What I'll do is I'll hold down the control key on my keyboard, and that allows me to keep drawing without having to stop and then realign everything. Now, I'm pretty bad at drawing these polygons, so nothing is going to be exact here. When I go ahead and complete the polygon, get it to the starting point, I go ahead and lift up on control and left click, and I have officially completed that. Now, when I switch back to token controls and I click on Quill, we can see that although we still see the top of the wagon, we cannot see beyond it no matter where he moves. I'll do the same for our Mystic wagon real quick here. Holding down control, trying to draw stuff reasonably. Again, not good at drawing the polygons. Lift up, left click to complete. And going back to token controls, clicking here, we can now see that Quill cannot see beyond either wagon, but he can see both wagons. Actually, I'm dragging my shadow. Let's grab Quill. All right, there we go. There. Now Quill can see both of those. Hopefully with this very, very simple example, you can see how cumbersome it would be to hand draw all the walls for something like a large map with many buildings. A giant city would be very difficult, or even worse, a cave with all kinds of nooks and crannies. It's why I use a third party program like Dungeon Alchemist. It's also why I'd suggest only using maps that are made by other people specifically for Foundry. There's a lot of great ones there that you can purchase. There's some that you can get for free. These maps will already include the walls and the lighting and the doors. We didn't accent it very much here, but if I go to lighting controls on the left, you can see inside Manny's Tavern, there are a number of lights that I got for free by creating this inside Dungeon Alchemist. We can turn those lights on and off individually, and you can see the difference in terms of shadows and lighting. Speaking of which, we have not tried our doors yet. Let's go open one. I'll move Quill over here. When players left click on a door icon, it will open if it's unlocked, and the light and sound and vision will automatically change based on the token's permission. You can see that music starts up when I move closer. If I close the door, the music stops. You get all of this for free with Foundry. Now, we covered a lot of topics in this video. It's actually quite a bit longer than my other videos up until this point. In spite of the sheer amount of time it took for you to listen to all this, I'm hoping that it will never take you more than around 15 minutes to create a basic battle map in Foundry once you get used to all the controls, and you are confident with your abilities to drag and drop from compendiums and add lighting sources, and perhaps even if you're using Foundry based maps, it will go even faster. Congratulations! You've just completed the 4th video in this series. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have one hell of a good day.